Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Just Paul today for the Week 12 reaction show. Should have Jack, Ziggy, and Zach back tomorrow for the Week 12 recap as we react to. We'll probably include the Eagles-Rams game that's going on Sunday Night Football right now. This is just the 1 and 4 o'clock games for the moment. And it's funny, guys, I went back and looked, or at least as I've updated the descriptions for full week reactions during the season, I noticed every week I put Paul, Jack, and Ziggy react to a wild Week 8, Week 12, whatever it may be, week of the NFL season. And sometimes I went, it wasn't really that wild. Like, we've had some weeks where all the favorites have won. I remember one in particular where I think most people in our Pick'em Challenge went like 15-1 or 14-2. But I still put the word wild in there to describe it. And this week, I feel justified doing that. I mean, between the Commanders-Cowboys game, the Vikings and the Bears, the Titans-Texans. You just had some fantastic finishes, especially in the 1 p.m. games. It was fun having Red Zone on too. When I watch the games, I usually try and have 3 on. We have the Sunday ticket, so we'll have 3 on the biggest games, and then we'll have the Red Zone in the corner to just keep up with everything. And it's always great seeing Red Zone at the end of the 1 o'clock games. It feels like March Madness, where you're just bouncing back and forth. Fantastic finish after fantastic finish. And that's something that's why football, the NFL, is so fun to me. You have basically once a week an NCAA tournament day, where if you're a football fan, it feels like that because you just have great games all on at the exact same time. And today we were treated to just a great day of football across the board here. A lot of Packers fans are going to be getting on us this week because the Packers won 38-10 over San Francisco. It's better for the channel. If you're new to the show, it's better for the channel when the Packers win, but it breaks my heart. It breaks Ziggy's heart as the 2 Vikings fans here. So there's this sick dynamic to this show, if you're new to it, where the sadder we are, the better our numbers do. So in some ways it takes away the pain a little bit, but in other ways you're just going like, oh, this is brutal. Like I always root for the Vikings and the best thing for the Vikings first, no matter what, whether it's fantasy, the show. And I guess that's what people enjoy because it is genuine sadness when things go poorly. And geez, if there was ever a day to have a live stream of my reactions, it was probably today in the Vikings-Bears game, where I said, it actually worked out perfectly with my prediction. I said in the preview show, we did the Monday morning headlines, the headline you'll see on Monday morning for a particular game. And I addressed Vikings-Bears and said, barely escaped. Vikings send Bears into early hibernation with game-winning field goal. And that is actually exactly what happened in terms of barely escaping this game with the ending was just so Vikings. And I get really worked up towards the end of games when I think things are just like the world is against us as Vikings fans. And then I usually go from anger, like immediate anger, to just numbness. And today was complete numbness. I was at the end of this game, Vikings are up 8 at the 2-minute warning with the ball, on like the 5-yard line, 4th and 1 from the Bears 5. I think it was inside the 5. And Kevin O'Connell, rightfully so, kicks the field goal to go up 11. The game's over. For every team in the league, except, maybe like your Jets and your Browns and your Vikings, the game is over. We had a 99.9% chance to win, according to ESPN. 99.9. I love looking at those models after something crazy happens because you just, statistically, like, of course you should win that game. And this one was about as high as you could possibly get. Up 11 with under 2 minutes left. And from there, you just have the spiral. And the Vikings, unlike any team, even including your other Black Cloud franchises, have this ability to collapse on all fronts at the same time within, minutes and have a game completely derailed. So it's stuffed on 3rd and 1, go to 4th and 1, you hit the field goal, thankfully, and then you allow like the massive kickoff return. And then you allow Chicago to go down the field. I hate prevent defenses. And the Vikings, 11-point game, it should be over. Like, this was a weird one. But I hate prevent defenses because you just... And this wasn't really a case because the Bears were already on the 40. I guess I'm just venting on prevent defenses. But the Vikings let Chicago get down the field. They convert a 4th and 3. Caleb runs for that. and they score with 21 seconds left. Of course, they then convert the 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point game. And even though no one in the NFL had recovered an onside kick to this point in the season, whenever you're going up against an onside kick, you feel a little uneasy because there's always that chance. And I'm sure everyone here has had an onside kick recovered when they're, for the team they're rooting for and when they're playing against someone. It's just you're always uneasy when it comes to onside kicks. So of course, Johnny Mundt, who's been great this year for the Vikings as well. Any Viking fan knows Johnny Mundt has made some big catches throughout his time in Minnesota, but he's had a couple big ones this year. Generally very reliable, and just a fun guy to root for. I don't know what he's doing on the onside kick. I mean, I understand his position is to go and block the oncoming Chicago player, and you're trying to get, in this situation, TJ Hawkinson to field the onside kick. But you got to be aware of where the ball is. You just have to. If it hits you, the ball wasn't even going to go 10 yards. And if it hits you, it's live. And that's exactly what happened when it hit Johnny Mundt in the ankle. Chicago player jumps on it. And all the Viking fans around the world are going, what the hell? I'm sure most people left their seat because the game was over. And all of a sudden, you're walking back into the room going, oh, here we go again. Of course they recovered it. Here we go. And Caleb fires like a 25-yard pass, middle of the field. This time, nearly another block field goal, by the way. But of course, it looks like it's bending out for Chicago, and then comes back in, and we're going to overtime, and you just go, can we catch a break? Well, no, you can't, because we lose the coin toss as well. And luckily, the defense steps up. Sam Darnold and the offense get the ball. And Sam Darnold, he hasn't been as good as he was the first 5 games. Everybody knows that, who's watched the Vikings. And the national media and most football fans have all been talking about Sam coming back down to earth. But he really has consistently this year, even in games when he's struggled, he has delivered in clutch situations on must-have-it drives. He's been pretty good. I know you can point to a few. The Detroit loss, we had a chance to put that one out. Couldn't do it there. But Sam Darnold has had some really big drives, both when he was playing his best football this year and when he wasn't. He leads the Vikings on just a really impressive drive where we had a lot of penalties set us back earlier on in that series. Let me see if I can see it here. 10 plays, 68 yards, 5 minutes, 30 seconds off the clock in overtime. Sets up a situation where Romo's, and what a great job he's done filling in for Will Reichard, hits the game-winning field goal. And, all Vikings fans, of course, for a last-second field goal, even if it's under 30 yards, you're holding your breath because we know who we are. But Darnold, 22 for 34 on the day, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns. He just had some big-time throws, guys. What should have won the game, the 34-yard pass to TJ Hawkinson, 3rd and 12 in that situation. Vikings are trying to run out the clock. That should have won the game. I mean, he gets hammered on the throw and hits TJ perfectly in stride. They also had the throw to Jefferson that got called back. That would have been a touchdown. Sam Darnold was tough on this game. He got knocked down quite a few times. One time, it looked like a bad ankle injury. Comes right back in the game. And you can't blame it on the offense today. There's been a lot of games that we can look at and say the offense let us down in the biggest moment, but not this week. Sam Darnold was very good against a very good Bears defense too. I mean, this is one of the best defenses in the National Football League, and Sam Darnold was able to deliver. When momentum, I'm as much a believer in momentum as anyone that I see in the media sphere. You can't ever account for shock. That's something that you can't prepare for. When you get slapped in the face and you have an 11-point lead disappear in under 2 minutes, you can't set those scenarios up in practice, how you're feeling, how the team's responding. That comes down to your character. That comes down to the culture that you build for your organization. And Kevin O'Connell has done a great job of making this Vikings group resilient. They showed the graphic. Since he's taken over, they have the most one-score wins in football. The Bears have the least. Nothing, not trying to diss Chicago here, but there's a difference in those two cultures right now. You see what happens in Chicago year after year, the dysfunction there is. You see that with the Jets. The Vikings get unlucky. They have heartbreak, but they are a very competent organization. They're well run. They're well coached. They're ready for big moments. And Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell, that whole team was able to respond. The defense as well, who just gave up, the 11 quick points, they were able to respond with the big stop of Caleb Williams and that offense when it felt like they were just going to go down and score after winning the coin toss in overtime. Offense gets the ball. You have your setbacks. Cam Robinson's hurt, and they go on the game-winning drive. I mean, really just a great job from everyone on the Vikings. Shit happens when you play. That was kind of the approach I was starting to take. As my anger and numbness wore off, you're just playing a football game. Anything happens. There's a reason you keep playing. And I was just really impressed with the way the team responded to a stunning situation, because you can easily fold there. And this was a must-have game for keeping up with the Lions, who it's going to be hard to catch them, but they're not invincible. And the best, the easiest way for the Vikings to drop out of that race is to hurt themselves. And today they did, and they were able to respond and get the win. Last thing on this game, I don't want to go too long because I know we got a lot of games to talk about. It's not a Viking podcast, just hosted by a Viking fan. Justin Jefferson had 2 receptions for 27 yards. People can look at that and say he had a bad game. But when you watch the Vikings play, if you're watching these games, the Justin Jefferson impact is immense. I mean, I saw a great tweet. Someone said, when you triple team Justin Jefferson the whole game, here's what happens. Aaron Jones, 22 carries, 106 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Addison, 8 catches, 162 yards and a touchdown. TJ Hawkinson, 7 receptions, 114 yards. The Justin Jefferson effect is the most impactful effect an individual player has on offense, non-quarterback in the league. It's not really close right now. He's unstoppable if you put one guy on him. And he had 2 catches, but a big one in overtime. Help move the chains and lead us on our game-winning field goal. But the attention that he commands opens everything up. And Jordan Addison, we finally got a game from him where he really exploded. And this is what the offense, this is the picture that Vikings fans had at the start of the year. Was Jefferson either dominating when you leave him on an island, or everyone else, the other weapons, being able to lift this offense to higher levels and take Sam Darnold to a higher level that he's never achieved in the National Football League. So the Justin Jefferson effect is real. And even though his numbers were low, I mean, he draws so many penalties. It's just an amazing player. So great job to Justin and the rest of the team. Shout out to Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, all of them. Great job. For the Bears, real quick, Caleb, 32 for 47, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. Some really high highs in this game. The touchdown drive they had in the first quarter is the first lead the Bears have had in the first quarter of this season. He threaded a pass into Keenan Allen and wound up going for 40 yards. This little scramble he had later in that drive, flown it to DeAndre Swift, who he lost track of the ball, looked back up, and just dropped into his hands, perfectly placed. You get these moments with Caleb where you say, that's special. That's like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And then you have these situations where 4th and 3, misfire to Keenan Allen on a kind of got to have it drive. You have the 12-yard sack on 2nd and 9 in overtime that basically killed that drive and gave the ball back to the Vikings, Jonathan Grenard, where Caleb just holding on to the ball for way too long. If you go back and watch that play, Caleb had all day to throw. Nothing's there. And finally, it was almost, you're just watching the play, and the Vikings guys are all stalled at the line. And you're like, all right, someone do something. It was one of those weird plays where you're just waiting for something to happen. And, as Caleb's getting chased, throw it away. Can't take the sack. Then they had the false start, I think it was, and you move back. It's 3rd and 26. It's a disaster situation. And the Vikings get the ball back. So you still have these moments where you're blown away by Caleb. And then there are moments where you're blown away in a worse way. You're like, what are you doing? That can't happen in the NFL. That's what Jack always talks about. This isn't Arizona State anymore. I still believe in Caleb Williams. I think he'll get there. I understand the people who are getting impatient, but you have to be patient. Like, patience is a virtue. I mean, I don't want to say it. I don't want to sound corny, but you got to be patient with these guys. Sometimes it takes a little longer than you want. So Chicago, that's the difference there between winning and losing, is those big plays there. The mistakes that they had. Another kick blocked today. Almost had their game tying kick blocked. Like Chicago's getting closer, and they've done a good job of playing hard football since everything that went down with Shane Waldron a couple weeks ago, the Hail Mary that really derailed their season. They'll get there, I think. Not this season, but there's reason to be optimistic in Chicago. And today, that was a great comeback. I know they kept saying resilient. I was getting tired of hearing that on the broadcast, but 11 points down with 2 minutes. Caleb made big throws. You want that if you're a Bears fan. Even though it was crushing to lose like that, you want to see Caleb go down, get the touchdown 2-point conversion, make the big throw to set up the game time field goal. That's what you want to have happen. That's what you want to see later in the upcoming years, where those games are turning into wins that impact playoff seeding and can eventually lead you on playoff runs. So you'll get there eventually. You just got to give it some time and not overreact. It's so easy to overreact to everything in the NFL, whether it's post-game or literally during the game, play-by-play. You go, this guy sucks, and then he makes an amazing play, and you go, wow, there's a reason he's the number 1 overall pick. Just be patient with it. Okay. Moving on, the team that were chasing the Vikings in the NFC North, the Detroit Lions, another pretty convincing win over the Indianapolis Colts today. It was, in the beginning, a little shaky in Detroit. Like I thought it could have been a game. 24-6 is the final score here. But early on, the Colts weren't able to convert inside the red zone. 2 early drives where they get inside the 5, and they cannot score. And that's maybe the second one didn't get inside the 5, but there was a drop on the 2-yard line where Indianapolis should have had 14 points early. Instead, they're down 7-6. Richardson had a missed throw to Alec Pierce that would have been a huge gain in the first quarter. And Detroit's done this to teams. If you don't take advantage of your moment against them, they will make you pay. In the second half, the Colts, the Lions really just took off. Started to stifle the Indianapolis offense, and that was really it. Anthony Richardson couldn't get much going. But that's what I've learned about Detroit this year. If you don't capitalize, they will punish you. Week 1 against the Rams. The Rams were up 20-17 with a chance to ice the game. They couldn't do it, gave the ball back to Detroit, who goes right down the field, ties it, wins in overtime. Texans, big lead. CJ Stroud has a chance to knock him out, throws an interception in the end zone, sparks the Detroit comeback. Next thing you know, they're in that football game, and they find a way to win. The Vikings, Sam Darnold had we had the crazy comeback with the fumble recovery, have a chance to put the game away, can't convert a third down. Detroit goes down the field, game-winning field goal. Today against the Colts, missed opportunities early, they make you pay for it. That's what we've had with the Lions now. They're not unbeatable. They're not invincible. They do beat the crap out of bad teams, unlike anyone in the league this year. And it's pretty impressive. I mean, looking what they're doing to the Titans and the Jaguars, teams don't do that in the NFL. Those are college football scores that you're seeing when Detroit plays bad teams. But the few times that they've played more competitive teams this year, and those competitive teams have had their opportunities, the Lions always find a way to win. And I've been calling it lucky sometimes when I get frustrated. I'm like, everything's going their way. For 40 years, it didn't go Detroit's way. And now this season, every break they have, of course, the year the Vikings are 9-2, every break that the Lions could get, they're getting. Well, some of it is a little bit of luck. That's involved with great seasons, with all-time seasons for franchises. But you're also making your luck sometimes. You're also forcing those turnovers and forcing teams into mistakes and missed opportunities. They kind of go hand in hand. Yes, you get a little lucky, but also Detroit is putting teams in the position to make those mistakes, and they don't make mistakes. That's the difference here. The Lions are not going to beat themselves. The only way they're really beating themselves is Dan Campbell making a coaching decision. And today, what was it earlier today? I'm trying to remember I think at 14-6, they had a 4th and 1. Yeah, this is what it was. They had a 14-6. The Lions were stuffed inside the Colts 20-yard line on a 4th and 1. And that's a situation where against the Colts, doesn't really matter in week 12. But if you're playing Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game, I know that the stats and all the numbers say go for it. You had the chance to go to a 2-score lead, probably want to take it. Because if you're playing the better teams in the league, they'll make you pay. Now, Detroit doesn't normally make these mistakes, and usually they convert these. They have a great offensive line. They have the best running back tandem in the league. There's a reason they're going for it. There's a reason it works most of the time. But the only chance I really see Detroit of making a mistake, critical mistakes that cost them, is those situations. Like, I don't see Goff having many of those. Like, he had the 5 interception game against Houston. They still won. But that's not going to happen very often in Detroit. He hasn't made a lot of mistakes for a while now. You don't have defensive collapses really going on this season in Detroit. And that's the difference between them and the other teams this year. Other teams make mistakes that cost them. Detroit doesn't. Coming up, this is really where we're going to get into the meat of the schedule for Detroit. I'm excited to see them play the Bears next on Thanksgiving. It's a game that they should win. I don't categorize the Bears on the same level as the AFC South teams that and even Dallas. When they beat up on them this season, the Bears are feisty and they're not playing bad football. I mean, 2 really close losses, 2 field games that came down to field goals against the Lions. Against the Packers and the Vikings. So you're at home. They'll probably win that game, but Bears defense is really good. I'm excited to see that matchup and how Caleb plays. But after that, this is what we want to see from the Lions. This is where you earn the number 1 seed. Hosting the Packers Thursday Night Football. Hosting Buffalo. At Chicago. At San Francisco. I believe that's Monday Night Football. Maybe Sunday night. No, Monday. Hosting the Vikings. Those final 5 games there. Packers, Bills, Bears, Niners, Vikings. That's your opportunity. That's where, even though everyone believes in you right now, that's where you put your foot on the throat of the NFC and you win the conference. And then it goes through Detroit, where the playoff environment has been really good last season. And you have your opportunity to win a Super Bowl. The best one you've had probably ever in Detroit. In a weaker NFC, I think Philadelphia's playing good football right now. We'll see if they'll probably wind up losing the Sunday night game, which is going on right now as I say this, but this is the chance. And those games will determine it. If you lose to the Packers on Thursday Night Football, if you lose to a Buffalo team that, Josh Allen can beat anyone, that's where you open the door for Philly to get the 1 seed, for the Vikings or Packers maybe to steal the division. This is what we want to see from the Lions. There are better games ahead. They've mopped the floor against these crappier teams. But we're really going to see what the Lions are made of down this stretch here. And there's no reason to believe that it's not going to be really impressive and potentially just dominant. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, I believe it was the 9th time that they've each scored a touchdown in a game. And that's 3rd most in NFL history. They've only played a season and a half together. There are fun teams to watch in the NFC North. As a Viking fan, the Lions and Packers are 2 of the most fun teams you can watch. So it sucks that in a 9-2 year you're dealing with this. But if you have to, I have to watch them. I will no matter what, but especially with the show. And then they're fun. All right, what do we have here? The upsets this week, crazy. I mean, I said off the top of the show, if there was ever a week to call it a wild week of football, it would be this week. Give me 1 second. I just need a drink here. It's a lot of talking for just me. And if you're still listening, please like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate everyone who's stuck along this long for my little NFC North rants. But the upsets. Cowboys 34, Washington 26. I mean, what a wild ending to that game, the back and forth. The Commanders sort of coming back down to earth after the start they had to this season where, it was special. Jayden Daniels was special to start this year. Over the past few weeks, we've sort of started to see who the Commanders really are. And, that's a competitive team, a team that is going to be really good over the coming seasons, I expect. Jayden Daniels has fallen off a bit, but he was on an unsustainable rate earlier this year. But they got something going there. This was a bad loss for this season because they're still the 7th seed right now. So they're still a playoff team, which is a huge win for Washington. From the start of the year, a lot of people, there were some people who had them pegged as a sleeper pick, but most people expected them to come in 3rd or 4th in the NFC East. And this is just highs and lows of the season, guys. Washington looks like they peaked early. Right now, after the Bears win, they've lost 3 of those following 4 games. 1 point loss to Steelers, kind of dominated by the Eagles, even though the score was closer than the game. And then the loss to Dallas was bad today. But I mean, the ending was just back and forth. And when Terry McLaurin had that big touchdown, a lot of Commanders fans are probably just thinking to themselves, like, what a year, with the Hail Mary, we have this one, we find a way to steal this. I was still thinking division. Right now, seems a little more far-fetched. We'll see what happens with the Eagles tonight. But they're 7-5. Philly's 8-2 at the moment. We'll see what happens. So that falls a little bit out of sight in terms of the division and what that could have looked like if they were hosting a playoff game. But look, guys, you end with the Titans, the Saints, hosting Philly in that huge game, hosting Atlanta at Dallas. I was thinking that if you beat Dallas today, it's set right there for you to potentially win out. And if you beat Philly, you're hosting a game. But, as I said before, shit happens in the NFL. Did not expect the Cowboys, who looked incompetent with Cooper Rush so far, to come out and, they had, it helps when you have kickoff return touchdowns and things like that going on. But just a wild ending. As the Vikings, I didn't catch most of it because the Vikings were in the middle of their ridiculous collapse. But I was just seeing all texts from people saying, like, what the hell's happening in football right now? Real quickly, we didn't touch on the Steelers-Browns. I'm a little nervous for Pittsburgh after the 1924 loss to Cleveland. Jack and Ziggy both warned me that this could happen, and I should have known better. I know AFC North football is, hard-nosed. It's tough games time and time again. I just thought this Pittsburgh team would be able to shut down Jameis Winston in Cleveland, especially given the elements that happened. I didn't see some of these impressive drives coming from the Browns. But the fear with the Steelers, and I've been saying this to Jack, is you worry about the offense sometimes. And coming up now, you're going to Cincinnati next week. The Bengals offense has been on fire. Even though they're not winning games, their defense is horrible. The offense has been on fire. Can they keep up? I don't know. You'll probably beat the Browns in Pittsburgh, but AFC North game, you never know. And the Browns have been fairly successful against the Steelers the past few years now. You go to Philly, you have to think that's a loss. Go to Baltimore. I know that the Ravens and Steelers have their whole thing where Lamar plays poorly, but I have to imagine that's a loss. You host Kansas City on Christmas Day. Maybe weird things happen, like we said in Acrisure Stadium, but I'd probably pick the Chiefs to win that. And now we're talking about 5 losses in 6 games and a Steeler team that was 8-3 falling to 9-7 going into the last game of the year hosting Cincinnati. So you could get to 10 wins and probably still a playoff team, but some of the shine on this season could come off really quickly. On the other side of things, the opportunity for some really impressive wins and to prove any doubters like myself wrong, where, if you beat Philly and Philly or Baltimore and Baltimore again, or the Chiefs, okay, maybe we look at you differently as a contender in the AFC. But this is kind of who Pittsburgh's become. They've become a team that finds their way into the playoffs, but they're not all that impressive. And then when they play the good teams, they usually lose. Not always embarrassingly, but you usually lose. And that's not the Steelers standard. Steelers standard is Super Bowls. The Packers standard is Super Bowls. These are the winning organizations in the NFL. And this is why you get some Steelers fans who I don't agree with them, but they want Mike Tomlin gone because they want to win. And even though you get, I don't think they really understand, Steelers fans, how crazy it is to make the playoffs and have winning seasons so consistently. Where, I'm a Viking fan and we have our ups and downs. Giants and Jets fans around here where I live in Jersey, it's miserable. They are miserable. I think the Giants and Jets have the worst record in football over the past 5 years, the two of them. Winning is hard, and the Steelers usually do it, but you can see how this season could get away from them here down the stretch. We all saw it. We talked about it earlier this year before the season started, how it was going to be proving it down the stretch for Pittsburgh. But losses like that to the Browns are the ones that you look back on when there are tiebreakers coming into effect that make you, they keep you up at night. Those are the ones that keep you up at night because the Steelers are going to be in a race with the Ravens. The Ravens are 1 game back, and how far back Cincinnati is 4-7. If Cincinnati wins out, probably not. But when we look at Pittsburgh in the playoffs, if they go on the road to Buffalo or to Houston or to Baltimore, this could be a game the Browns won that you say, if we had won that, we'd be hosting maybe the Broncos or the Chargers. Who knows? So a big upset, one that I don't think the Steelers can afford given their schedule, but we'll see. They had the opportunity. Jack would tell me I'm crazy. And then lastly here, you had the Titans and the Texans in another weird game. I don't know what to make of this Houston team. A lot of people put them in their power rankings this week. We did not in our joint power rankings. In fact, I don't believe Ziggy, Jack, or I had the Texans in our top 10. And it's just because, guys, they haven't looked like a top 10 team. Like the Texans have, what have they done recently? Who's their win last week? They beat Dallas 34-10. They looked impressive, okay? Beat up on the Cowboys, a national television game. People kind of forgot that the week before that he had the huge loss to the Lions, and the week before that, they lost to the Jets, who are a dumpster fire. I mean, the Jets have been horrible. That's the only win they've had against the Texans. So today, you lose to the Titans. Okay, 2 of your last 4 games are losses to the Titans and the Jets. How much can I really believe in you right now? Are you really that excited about the Texans at the moment? You can't be. I mean, they beat the Bills, and that was a great win. But where else are we seeing here on the schedule impressive wins from Houston? The Colts, the Bears, the Jaguars, the Bills, great, the Patriots, the Colts, the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. I'm not saying fraud or anything. I like CJ Stroud. I think the defense has its moments, but they're not on the level of the top dogs in the AFC. They're going to win their division because their division sucks. They're not going to win it because they went out and took it. And the Bills division is bad, but they're 9-2. The Chiefs division, Chargers and Broncos are playing well. The Chiefs are taking that. Whoever wins the AFC North is going to earn that division, whether it's the Steelers or the Ravens. They're going to have a good record. The Texans are 7-5. I don't know how they end the year. Who do they have coming up here? Jaguars, Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, Titans. That could be 3 more losses there. Now we're talking about a 9-8 division champion. I just haven't been impressed with Houston. I know we have actually a fair amount of Houston listeners to this show, but you just can't lose that game at home to a Titans team that is 3-8 or 2-8 coming into the game. They've just been bad. I watched the Vikings play the Titans a couple weeks ago. It was domination, really. I know it was close at times, but that's because the Titans had a 98-yard touchdown. You see what the Lions did to the Titans? I mean, it's just not a win or not a game that the Texans can lose like that if you want to be a Super Bowl contender. They got to clean it up quick. I mean, guys, Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, 3 of their next 4 games. They're going to make the playoffs because their division sucks, but you got to go in with some momentum. Remember last year, they came in, they were playing good football. You got to be playing well when it matters. And CJ Stroud, I really like watching him. I keep talking about him like he's a top 5 quarterback. He did not look like one today. Did not look like one at all. And Nico Collins coming back has been very helpful for them. That was a huge piece of it. I thought that they would be better, but CJ was not good today. 2 picks, a couple bad ones. Can't happen. Shocking loss for Houston. And yeah, if you have Pittsburgh coming in there with that defense, Steelers don't really have much playoff success recently, but that might be a spot where they could win. All right, what else do I have here? Oh, all right, the last thing here. I want to talk about the Dolphins because Ziggy's been high on them for quite a few weeks now. Even before the winning streak, they've won 3 in a row now. Ziggy was talking about the Dolphins as a top 10 team, and we're like, come on, dude, really? We're trying to do these joint power rankings. It's a fun segment. It's supposed to be. For anyone who hasn't seen it, we go down 10-1, each taking a turn, picking a team to be in the top 10. And the whole point of it is that we have different lists, and we're trying to make the best list we can together, but we don't know where our teams are placed. So if you have someone that you're really high on, but that knocks out another top 5 team because there's no spots left, it's the chaos of it. It's a way to make power rankings enjoyable. And Ziggy put the Dolphins at 10 recently. Now, I don't think he had the first pick. I don't think he had the 10th slot, so he couldn't mess up the whole power ranking. But we were like, really, dude? You would have messed it up with Miami there? He said, hey, with Tua, this team is good. And I think he's kind of full of shit because I think he's just got lucky on this one because the Dolphins did not look good earlier in the year, even with Tua. I mean, the Bills game when he got hurt, Tua was not playing well at that point. But since coming back, 1 point loss to the Cardinals, 3 point loss to the Bills, a game they should have won, and then pretty convincing wins now over the Rams, the Raiders, and the Patriots, who, I'm not super high on the Patriots or Raiders. I think the Rams are a good team, but Miami's been convincing lately. And here we are now at the end of week 12 after they were, 2-5 or 2-6? And the Dolphins are 5-6, one game behind the Broncos in the loss column for the 7th seed. Denver's, they've been winning lately. They're playing good football. But if I were the Bills, or if I'm whoever the 2 seed winds up being, I think I'd rather play the Broncos than go up against all the weapons Miami has, especially with the way they're playing. Tua, 29 for 40, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle, 144 and a touchdown. It's there for the Dolphins, who over the next couple weeks, they have a tough schedule. They're not guaranteed anything because, let's see here. They go to Green Bay, host the Jets, at Houston, host San Fran, at Cleveland, at the Jets. You going 3-3 there is going to be difficult. And the Broncos, meanwhile, they host the Browns, host the Colts, at the Chargers, at the Bengals, host the Chiefs. So take your pick there. It's probably going to be one of those 2 teams. Bengals are still looming at 4-7. I think people aren't willing to give up on them because of Joe Burrow. So one of those 3 teams are who I'm expecting to get in as that 7th seed. But from where we were 3 weeks ago with Miami, or 5 weeks ago with Tua, really on the verge of retiring, a lot of people thought, or should have been on the verge of retiring, to where we are now at 5-6, 3-game winning streak. This Packer game on Thanksgiving is massive. And it's a chance again for them to prove a lot of people wrong. Because what does everyone talk about Miami in big games, especially in the cold? They don't show up. They get blasted. Tua can't play in those games. This is a chance right here on primetime television, Thanksgiving night. As many eyes are going to be on as possible. Go beat Jordan Love and the Packers. Need it. Have to win this game. In the playoffs, you're going to probably have to go to either Pittsburgh or Baltimore or Buffalo. It's going to be cold. You're going to have to go to Kansas City. It's going to be cold. It's great if you get the Chargers or Texans in some ridiculous championship game or divisional matchup. All right. To go and win football games in January, you have to play in cold weather environments. You have to win those games. Do it here against Green Bay on Thanksgiving. Set yourself up. You got to change that narrative. Miami's had this unfortunate streak of big game disappointments. Here it is, guys. I thought you had it against Buffalo a couple weeks ago. And somehow, some way, you had the pass interference and even in the game when Tua gets the touchdown to take the lead against the Bills, of course you give up like the 3rd and 15, whatever it was, on the Jordan Poyer pass interference, which was the right call. The Dolphins make mistakes in those games that cost them. They consistently do. And the Packers are playing good football at the moment, so it would be a hell of a win setting you up for a home game against the Jets on December 8th, where if you win that, then you'd be 7-6, a winning record, and you got to keep pace because the Broncos are probably going to beat the Browns and Colts at home. So huge game coming up for them. I can't wait to see it. I've been really impressed with the response from Miami. Talk about a resilient team, given where they were. Anything else I want to talk about here? Let me just look at the scores. Try to remember all these games. It can be tough during the solo pod, especially when you're doing instant reactions. But oh yeah, the other big one, Seattle over Arizona. This was the one I kind of want. I know my dad and good family friend had a parlay, Mr. Frankowski, with Seattle winning this game, and this was one that we all agreed coming into the day that Seattle was probably going to win at home. Felt like a good Seattle spot. They've been playing a little better recently. It was a great opportunity for Arizona to seize control of the NFC West. If they had won this game, they would have moved to 7-4. 49ers, 2 back in the loss column. Plus, you have the tiebreaker. Last game of the year. We all know the Cardinals and 49ers play in Arizona. Have that working to your benefit too. And they just lay a stinker against Seattle. 6 points, can't happen. Kyler had the huge pick 6 on 4th down. And my dad brought up a great point because he's locked in. Whenever you have a parlay here, you're locked in on one of those final legs. So he's watching the game, and Kyler has this little rollout, like scramble out on 4th and 1, and they were trying to have him run for the first down to his right, but Seattle read it well, and they had, I don't know who it was, kind of leaking out along with him for the potential to dump it off. And you so consistently see Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, even when they're getting hit, make that throw, even sometimes flicking it, behind the back, whatever it is, left-handed like Mahomes does. And usually you have Chris Collinsworth or whoever it is going crazy about how impressive of a play it was. And Kyler doing it today, just, threw it like 10 feet over the guy's head and got picked off by Seattle in return for a touchdown in a close game, like a very close game. Like that can't happen, but also it kind of shows, my dad pointed out, it's impressive, the stuff Mahomes and Josh Allen, even when they do those little flicks, they make it look simple. Because you have a guy like Kyler Murray, who I think is a borderline top 10 quarterback in the National Football League, throwing it like 10 feet over someone's head. Kind of shows how amazing those guys are. But huge missed opportunity for Arizona on this one. Just a stinker, like I said. And Seattle takes control now of the NFC West. And I'm going to stick to my guns here. Seattle is exactly who I think they are. You go up and down their schedule throughout the season. You can basically predict what games they'll win and what games they'll lose most of the time here. I didn't think they'd beat the 49ers on the road last week. So maybe this is a new Seahawks team. And if they host a playoff game, Seattle's a tough place to play. But I still think that in big situations, Geno had some bad turnovers today. I don't really trust Geno Smith. I think he's good, and I think he keeps them in a competitive spot, and that means something. Like, it actually means something to be competitive, guys. Teams take that. If you could get to the playoffs, you have a shot. And Geno Smith puts Seattle in a position where they can get to the playoffs. A lot of teams would beg for a guy like Geno this year, just to be competitive. Imagine, the Jets had Geno. If you had him on this team instead of Rodgers, maybe it's a different season. But here Seattle is, week 13 with the lead in the division, and they're going to have to earn it. Their schedule is difficult to close the year, and you got Matthew Stafford, Super Bowl champion, and that Rams team that's starting to play a little better. San Francisco is not going to go away quietly. Arizona, still, you have to play them again in their building. The NFC West is going to be probably the most fun division race, even though, actually, the NFC North will be more fun because I think the teams are just better. But in terms of closeness, these teams are all separated by one game. And it's going to be a battle to see who maybe the Vikings or Packers play in the first round of the playoffs. And I'll tell you right now, I don't want to go to San Fran, and if assuming they're healthy. And then I probably don't want to go to Seattle next. That's probably it. Okay. I think that's it for today. And just make sure I'm not missing anything. Tampa 30-7. Don't know what the hell the Giants are doing with the DeVito start. Doesn't really make sense when you bring in Drew Lock to compete for that the number one quarterback spot in New York. I don't know why they're doing the whole DeVito. Like, I like Tommy DeVito. It's fun, but it's a sideshow. Like, we all knew this was going to happen. What was it? 5.5 spread Tampa today was the easiest thing ever. I don't bet too much, but that one felt like a given. My Uncle Jeff was asking me today, who's a bigger circus, the Jets or the Giants? I think you have to say the Jets, but it's kind of embarrassing for the Giants that they're even mentioned in the same breath there. No offense to the Jets fans. I know that they'll probably be upset there. But yeah, just a clown show in New York right now, all across the board. Like it's brutal. It's fun around here when those teams are good, because it's sort of like with the Mets. I'm a Yankees fan. You don't want them to get too good to the point where the fan base becomes annoying, but you also want them to be good, because then you can talk with people about these things. Talk radio is a little more fun. People are engaged. My friends around here are talking some smack, and like at the end of the day, that's what sports is all about. And when the Giants and Jets are the two losingest franchises in the league over the past 5 years, it's just, one, it's embarrassing for them, and two, it's just disappointing as a football fan living in New Jersey to have them be so bad. Everyone knows what I'm talking about too with their rivals. Like, you root against them, but it's more entertaining when they're good than when they're bad, at least for me. 30-27, the Chiefs beat the Panthers. That would have been fun. But that's what the Chiefs do. They always win. like when you give Mahomes the ball with a minute or 2 minutes left and you need a score, he's going to win the game. You can see it coming a mile away. Great job for Bryce Young. Impressive just hanging in there. The Panthers have been playing a lot better recently, and that's something that I don't think a lot of people would have expected given how they started this year. But they've won 2 of their last 3, and they played really tightly against a 10-1 team today. So let's see how that goes over the next few weeks. Chuba Hubbard's been amazing. Of course, the first year that I don't pick him up in fantasy. I've had Chuba for 3 years and now. He's been horrible, great. The 1 year I'm like, I'm done with this guy. Anything else here? I think I've exhausted everything. Is there any other game? The Broncos had the big win over the Raiders just to hold on to that wild card spot. Denver, I'm still not convinced of, though. I think that they're one of the best stories in the league, like I was saying on the past show. But I'm still not convinced. If they go into Buffalo, I think they get spanked. But this is still a huge win to be a 7 seed with the way they looked last season. Oh, I didn't talk about the Packers. I have a full Packer reaction show on their 38-10 win over the 49ers. Sorry, I had to have a drink there. I think they're really coming into their own at the right time. And it's not the final product yet of the Green Bay Packers. It's not the version of them that we saw the final 10 games last year. But you can see it taking shape. And I'm not scared of them as a Viking fan right now. I still feel good that we'll beat them in Minnesota and stay a seed up on them in the playoff picture. But I can see where the concern can start as Jordan Love continues to get healthier. Defense causes turnovers under Jeff Hafley. They can create chaos. You can see the picture taking form for who the Packers want to be. And they got their big games coming up. They'll have their opportunity. It's really going to be the schedule down the stretch here is awesome, where the teams who are trying to make a big run are going to be playing the teams they need to unseat. And I can't wait to watch that. And the Packers are going to be in prime time for the next 4 weeks. They're in night games. They're a fun team to watch. Even as a rival, I'll admit, I love watching their games. They are an entertaining football team. So we'll see. Starting on Thanksgiving night, do they keep it going against the hot Dolphins team? I think they probably do. If I, not to spoil my prediction early, but I think they probably will win that game. And as we move closer and closer to the playoffs, if they can reach that ceiling that they were at last year, Detroit fans are probably as scared of them as they are anybody. Like, I think Philly would be the team most on their radar at the moment, but the Packers are the team that can go shot for shot with you. How many other teams in the NFC? The 49ers, not right now. The Vikings, maybe, but they're not playing the way they were to start the year. Not the Commanders. Not the Bucs or the Falcons. Like, it's the Packers. They're the team that could unseat Detroit. Especially in Detroit, in the dome, like I was talking about on the reaction show. Green Bay in a dome, they like domes. They are a throw it all over the place. If it's a neutral environment, that's good for Jordan Love. So I'm not excited to see that, but I think it's going to happen where Green Bay is going to start to peak over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to go into the playoffs with the Vikings, the Lions, and the Packers playing pretty good football. The matchups again they have coming up against each other are going to be huge, but it's going to be really fun down the stretch here in the NFC North, where I think these are 3 of the best 4 teams in the NFC, and they're not fake. Like, they are not fake teams. Each of them have had, or the Vikings and Packers have had their questions around them this year, but they are legitimate contenders, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I can't wait to see that as we get closer to the playoffs. All right, I appreciate you guys for listening. I know that was a long show, just listening to one person. But it's been awesome, the reception we've had this season. We've had great numbers, trying to do a lot of cool things. Our reels, we're trying to get more of those out. It's been a lot of fun, and we can't do it without people listening and engaging with the show. And that's been great. It's so much fun looking and seeing comments. Even when they're hate comments, it's great to see it because, people are into it. And that's really all we want. This is supposed to be a show where you can come and have some fun, and just listen to guys talking football. We're not professionals. We're not pretending to be. We're fans who have podcast equipment and, just work hard. So if you're enjoying it, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It means a lot to us. We appreciate it greatly. And I'll be back tomorrow with Ziggy and Jack and Zach, hopefully, for a full another reaction to Week 12.